Hello and welcome to this very special show on money control, and I am Ruchira Sharma. The pace of digitalization has been picking up in the country with smartphone penetration, better data connectivity, and increased UPI usage. Digital transactions have been on the rise for a while now. However, when it comes to rural India, cash continues to be the king. In fact, pandemic induced demand as well as growing presence of new age companies in the rural markets are just some of the few factors that have further fueled the use of cash. In this context, cash management becomes paramount for business entities engaging in the rural areas. And Mumbai based Fino Payments Bank, a fintech with a banking license and one of the very few successful payments bank of the country, has been helping corporates manage cash efficiently through its unique cash management service offering. Today, on this special show, I am in conversation with Major Ashish Ahuja, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Fino Payments Bank. And he will help us understand the need for CMS solutions in today's business scenario and also how the future really looks like. So, welcome to the show, Major Ashish. It is great to have you here with us. Major Ashish, my first question to you is that as a new age fintech bank, how do you see the cash situation really evolving when it comes to the rural markets? And what does it mean broadly for the banking business in general?
So if you look at it in the larger context, I think digital is growing by leaps and bounds. But in the rural space, I think cash is still king. If you look at the period after demon, I think it accentuated the need for banking, right? And that banking still in rural India continues to be cash dominated. Now that is what is how does it get driven? I think is demographics play a role. Women,
Mhm.
they're still comfortable with cash. The older generation is still comfortable with cash. But if the younger generation in rural India is what is fueling the digital story over there. So this is something that's going to pan out over a period of time. If you look at all the disbursements that are done for direct benefit transfers that are done by
Mhm.
MFIs, largely a cash driven kind of a payment system, right? Now, what does
Definitely.
this present for banks? What's the opportunity for it in banks like Fino or for banks in general?
Mhm.
I think CMS is an ROA business. More cash in leads to more cash out, transactions on both end. That's a win-win story because cash remains in the local economy. You can make money on both sides of the transaction. And that is what the monetization of this cash economy that needs to be done to bring it. And it's that journey that will get traveled over a period of time from the cash economy to the digital economy. But today, I would say this is the opportunity it presents to bankers over there.
All right. So, rural focused entities such as MFIs and NBFCs do a lot of cash collections. So, you spoke about opportunities, but along with that also come a lot of challenges. So, tell us what are the key challenges faced by them when it comes to really handling cash, and how can new age banks like Fino help them in creating value?
So, if any business has to have a longevity, any line of business, I think you need to be solving a problem. For that, the question you asked is very, very pertinent that what is it that this business is aimed towards? You look at an MFI, you look at any entity which is dominant in the rural space, it has a cash problem. When you say cash problem,
Mhm.
you need to bury that cash somewhere, but your
Definitely.
workforce needs to be concentrating on the core business rather than picking up cash from either a loan collection or from distributors or from merchants and carrying it in person and standing in bank queues,
Mhm.
which is not the core part. And that is where Fino comes in with the solution.
All right.
We give merchant points, 94% of the districts, 92% pin codes covered, right? Over 8 lakh merchant points. Now, in a territory, when we map our merchant points, our customers, our clients, or the customers of the client can go to any of these points and deposit the cash, thereby freeing them up for their core business as agents or the
Mhm.
customer's time being saved where the customer doesn't need to go too far because our points are freely available. Plus,
All right.
we have a platform. It's a cash bazaar, right? So you
Yes.
press a button on the app and it will tell you where a
Mhm.
Fino point exists in your vicinity of 2 kilometers, what is the direction to it, how much of cash can be accepted over there. And
Mhm.
that's what really solves the problem for the entire this thing. So if you can concentrate at the core, that's
Mhm.
where the longevity of the business, and that's what we're basically aiming at, and that's what we're growing up.
All right. So that was really interesting. But let's also talk about the interesting trends that are emerging in the CMS space. So, what about new sectors which are entering the rural markets? And has Fino particularly witnessed any traction on this front?
So if I look at it, the cash management business, I see the growth of our this thing, right?
Hmm.
Over FY20 to now, we've had a growth of from 39 clients to 127 clients, over 187 modules with some of our with large chunk of our clients having an agent module as also a customer module with us, right? One side of it. That's the faith that the client or the customer is reposing in the model that we are running today. Number one. Secondly, when we started off, I think the bulk with all the BFSI business, NBFCs, MFIs. Today, e-commerce companies, logistics companies, what do you call it, edutech companies, insurance companies, you name a sector, we would have touched them all. And we've just added CRAs. We're working with CRAs also in this model now. So I think there's a huge acceptance and the partnerships that we're doing, the various type of companies and providing the service is what is driving the growth for us.
All right. But let's also talk about the growing digitalization across tier two, tier three, and interior areas. So, what's your view when it comes to a broad business outlook on the cash management system?
So if you look at the Credit Suisse report, I think 72% of India's consumer transactions are in cash today, right?
Mhm.
But it's the digital piece which is growing at a very, very fast pace. The second aspect, if I look at our own customer journey in our CMS business, last year we did about close to about 12,000 crores in throughput. This year in 9 months, we've already crossed a number of 15,000 crores. We're still a quarter to grow, right? I
Mhm.
mentioned about the number of clients and the number of modules that we have on this side. When I see the growth in our UPI numbers,
Mhm.
we've had a 350% growth in our UPI transactions in this financial year itself, which
All
basically
right.
makes me believe that digital and rural India, when I
Mhm.
map ourselves with the pulse report that PhonePe gives out, we see newer territories coming out which are not there in the report, which goes
Mhm.
on for, makes me believe that rural India is charting its own path when it comes to digital, and this is
Mhm.
the journey they will travel. It is only a question where companies like Fino come in and we handhold them from a phygital
Right.
journey to a digital journey. And that's where we're playing the unique role of traversing that customer and handholding that customer. Because from a digital perspective, one of the most important things for the customer is reliability and a customer grievance redressal where somebody can fall back if something goes wrong with that transaction.
So, thank you for sharing your insights on the broad business outlook of CMS. But there has been a lot of evolution when it comes to banking in general. But what do you think the road ahead looks like, and how well is Fino geared up for that?
The way I look at it is, see, Fino, like I told you, basic avatar of Fino, we have a phygital model where we
Mhm.
have the 8 lakh points of presence and growing at a very, very fast pace. At these points of presence, once the customer touches any of our merchant points, the entire journey is fully digital, not a single piece of paper, right? Fino 2.0 is going to be a digital story.
Right.
And that's where I think we are very, very well poised because our large distribution setup,
Hmm.
a growing base of clients, and a very, very deep and wide dispersed distribution setup is the key to growth of this business. So if you ask me, we're in a very, very sweet spot.
Mhm.
Any company which requires to go rural and is dealing in cash and requires a cash solution from a budget
Mhm.
standpoint has no choice but to think Fino. And that's where I would tell clients that you go rural, you think cash, you think Fino, and we'll bury it for you, we'll digitize it for you.
Definitely. So thank you, Major Ashish Ahuja, for joining us on Money Control. And definitely, as you mentioned, Phygital is the road ahead. Thank you for being with us, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much, Ruchira. Thank you so much. Pleasure being with you.
Thank you, sir.